so many great topics to talk about today, my God. We are live. How are you doing
I am doing
today?
great. I feel like you and I were having like a Goodfellas moment. You've probably never even seen this movie, but it's like
Tell me.
the two main protagonists in the movie were
Okay.
literally as they were planning on doing something else, they were sitting outside this club in a car and they were talking so much that they forgot to do the other thing that they were doing.
Thankfully, we started the live on time because we didn't forget.
No, we didn't
But
forget.
yes, it
What
was
they were
close.
doing was arson, and what we're doing is actually trying to welcome everybody back to
Exactly.
AGTP Daily. You know, Mark, we go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss the most important tech stories in the US. How could we forget to do that? That's
Exactly.
not possible.
Impossible.
And today, I've checked this many times, is Tuesday, the 30th of June, 2026. Let's get right to this stuff, Martin. So, a couple of topics, and then we've got another great guest tonight. Chamath Palihapitiya raises $135 million for AI coding. That's going to be interesting. And Meta's Brain2Qwerty. Brain2Qwerty. I kind of like the name, actually. It's weird for Meta to come up with such a good name. This is version 2. And then later in the show, we are going to be joined by Cheyney, the EVP Global Business Development at QSIC, to explore how AI-powered in-store audio is going to help retailers turn physical locations into measurable media networks that improve customer experience, drive sales, and create new advertising revenue.
This is really, really cool. Like the first time we talked to them and they told us more about what they were doing, I was like, wow, this is such an interesting.
I cannot wait to talk to this
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
I don't even need a list of questions. I'm just like, dude, tell me about this thing you're doing.
Exactly.
Right?
So,
Why does
but
music matter, kind of thing.
by the way, he will be joining us at 12 p.m. Right? Like, so we have an hour of news first, and then he join us at 12 p.m.
Yeah, so
Just
he's
so
he's
everybody
he's
knows.
later in the show. We're going to do an hour of
Exactly.
news, and then we'll get to the guest. Okay, Martin, let's talk about. I want to talk about this in slightly more general terms. Obviously, Chamath Palihapitiya, very famous. I can give you some backup on him because I do think it's important that
Yes.
we do this. But are these AI coding startups a new bubble, and is he building something different? But before we get there, can I give a little bit of background on this guy
Let's do
himself,
that.
just for people that don't know? So he's a Canadian American VC entrepreneur and a media guy. And to be fair, he was actually born in Sri Lanka, raised in
Okay.
Canada. Smart dude, studied electrical engineering at the University of Waterloo. And he was actually a very senior dude at Facebook before he started a company called Social Capital, which is the name of his VC firm.
Okay.
And if you're curious, like, well, I've never heard of the guy and I've never heard of Social Capital. What is he invested in that actually matters? Like, why do we care? Why does anybody care about what this guy says?
Mhm.
Well, besides the fact that he was head of growth at Facebook, and I don't know if you know this, but Facebook has like 2 billion monthly average users. I know you
Okay.
know that. I'm just being a little bit sarcastic. Um, but Social Capital was also one of the earliest investors in Slack,
Okay.
in Box,
Okay.
and in SurveyMonkey.
Okay.
So he's a billionaire. So he's definitely, and I think that he's the only general partner in his fund. He started it on his
Wow.
own. I believe he may have a partner in there, but I don't remember that guy's name. And that other guy is definitely not nearly as famous as Chamath is.
Mhm.
Chamath is one of those guys like Messi who just has like one name.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like Ronaldo.
Yeah. True.
All you have to do is say like one of his names and everybody knows who you're talking about. Like there's no
Yes.
like Bob Mbappe. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
just
Yes.
Mbappe.
True.
Sorry. um, But now he's going to go back and he's going to start he's going to join a company called 8090 as the CEO. And this is an AI native software development company focused on regulated enterprises. And I don't think it would ever be hard for this guy to raise money, right? Because he's probably made so much money for people, but he raised $135 million Series A led by Salesforce Ventures which I thought was pretty interesting. Wonderco, which is, oh, come on. It's not David Geffen. It's one of these other like guys that works with Steven Spielberg, has his own venture capital company. Kraft Ventures, the production board, Launch, and some other high profile angels. But everybody's, for the pun is definitely intended, everybody is all in on this thing. He's also one of the hosts of the All In podcast, right? So that's one of the reasons why he's super famous. The other thing is they're not saying that they're going to compete directly or only with Cursor. Right. So Cursor, if you ask those guys to describe themselves, and again, Martin, you tell me where you think I'm wrong here, but if you ask Cursor to describe itself, it would say like, we're an AI coding company,
Mhm, mhm.
right? And that if you use Cursor, let's just say some high percentage of your code can get written by Cursor. Somebody has to look over it to make sure it's okay, blah, blah, blah. But what they're saying is they don't want to just be another coding assistant.
Okay.
They want to be like an enterprise. This is the way they're describing it. So I'm using their words. They want to be described as an enterprise software factory that actually turns business intent into production software. So full stack, like with all the documentation, collaboration, oversight, have auditable code, all this kind of stuff. And the idea for them is that whereas something like Cursor or Codex, right, or Opus 4.8 or whatever you're using for your code stuff, and it's not just code completion, obviously, right? This is actually writing code.
Mhm, mhm.
It's that they're not targeting the individual developer. And you do hear a lot of like NVIDIA saying, you know, our developers, meaning each individual one of them uses, let's just say Codex or Opus
Oh, wow.
4.8,
Mhm.
right? And that's how we generate our code. But what they're saying is they want to go to huge, large organizations with legacy systems, huge compliance burdens, like all this kind of stuff, and say, we want to manage that entire part of your software stack for you.
Mm.
So
So
it's not just writing the code. Sorry, go ahead.
it really sounds like basically what I'm doing, right? Like I'm not a
I'm
developer
thinking the
myself,
exact same thing,
and I
actually.
I'm not I'm not a developer. I'm not a tech guy. I mean, I understand enough tech to actually be able to do stuff, but I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
my own workflow today to build all the software for our company, right? So not only write code, I also need to integrate the database and the domain name and the documentation and the knowledge base and all of that I had to do it myself, right? So it's
Well, I
not
mean,
like
they
just
say
writing
they're
code.
targeting large enterprises. This is what undercover media is, right? I
Exactly,
mean, so
one
for
of the
sure.
largest company in the world, right? So exactly, this is, but it feels like it's exactly what I do, right? Like where Cursor exactly actually could be a little bit too small in a way for me because I don't only code, right? It's not like what I do. I don't code. I build software. That's really what I'm doing,
Right.
right? I build software for our company. I would say I build company OS, right? Like that's really what I do.
But also the architecture. When you're sitting down
Yeah, the
building
architecture
software and
is the
we're
hardest
talking about
part.
it, you're not thinking like, I just want to build this one thing. You're thinking, how does it fit into all the other software that I've already
Exactly.
built? And that's
Yes, yes.
architecting.
Yeah,
And that's different.
and the architecting part of it is definitely by far the hardest part.
And,
And this is
and the most important part.
and the most important part and the massive limit to vibe coding, right? Like if you believe vibe coders who have no tech knowledge can architect a database, a multi-server
No, no, no.
platform, create like all the documents that the agent would need to actually be able to get the proper data, it's just impossible. It requires some hard skills. Really, like this, you need real tech skills for
Yeah, yeah.
really creating a software that you're gonna be very, very helpful. You can probably vibe code, sorry, an app or a website, but here we are really talking about much larger softwares that can help you run your entire business, right? So
Yeah.
from finding clients to handling emails to managing your CRM to helping you with social media and all connected with each other. So when you create a post on social media, actually the agent has all the information about what you're gonna talk about, what are the main topic, what is your voice, without you putting all the information again and again and again, right? And this is the
Yeah.
type
Yeah. Yeah.
of structure that we are talking here about. And to be able to build that, you need exactly as Chamath company is doing, build a software, right? And build
Yeah.
a big software, and the infrastructure side is super important here.
And my guess is in your mind when you're developing individual pieces of the software architecture that you have in mind,
Mm.
where does this fit in?
Yeah.
And what else do I plan to add in the future? And how can I
Mm.
connect it to that as part of this overall architecture? And that's not something that Cursor's doing, or that I know that Codex is doing, or that, Opus 4.8 and their
Yeah.
coding stuff is doing either. That's not the
No.
way they're selling it, at least. If it is doing that, it's just something we don't know, but
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't
they
sound
don't.
like that.
The only thing all the tool that you mentioned does is they help you with coding. So not
Yeah,
only
yeah.
code completion, they can help you actually do the coding, right? But like even if you don't know the code, they are going to do it for you, so that's great. But you still need to do the architecture by yourself, or at least have an idea of what's going on, because the AI is not yet capable of doing the entire thing. And plus, that the context is just so huge, right? Like
Mm.
so, and it gets really messy really quickly if you let the AI do everything, and then maybe it works for a week, and you want to add another feature, and it breaks. So that's why like having an orchestrator will actually help you on the infrastructure side, and to
Mm.
say like, look, I'm gonna basically help Opus, help GPT 5.5 to actually do the infrastructure properly. That's definitely a layer that is completely missing as of now, and it's really hard. So yeah, that makes sense.
So it's interesting as well that you mentioned this, but I do believe it's true. You could probably ask 5.5, right? Opus 5.5, excuse me, to give you some architectural information if you give it enough information. But the point I think that 8090 is saying is that they're building it from the beginning to understand what like they're almost giving it like a master's degree or a PhD in computer science.
And from what I've seen, it's always better when the system has been built from scratch with AI. Like if you try to plug in AI into a system, very often it goes sideways super fast. But if the system has been built from the get-go by AI, I see that over time it just gets optimized and it just gets easier to work with and implement new features and debug and everything. I don't know why, but it feels like the AI understands its own code much better than other people's codes, basically. I think that's the
but I mean, that's true. That's true for everybody, right? Like, some dude who's writing code is definitely going to understand that code way better than somebody with a PhD in computer science, because that guy didn't write that code, so he doesn't understand like where it's going at the beginning, nor like why it was written in the way it was written. And in some cases, may not even understand what the person was trying to accomplish. But because it has a structural understanding of the way it likes to code, this is why, whether it's Codex or 5.5, I've been saying 4.5, but I mean 5.5, and even Cursor probably has an idea about like what that code is going to look like. It's easier for them to read it, which is why one of the use cases for that software is also a little bit of Q&A and understanding code quality, right? So quality assurance as well. When they're writing stuff,
all the data structure, like building the proper data layer, like connecting the governance, and also the probably some cyber security thing inside of that as well. Like this is really hard, right? Like this is really hard. You need somebody to actually think about it, right? And to actually build it. And this is not a segment of the market that is currently served, definitely. So I think it's really interesting that they are going to enterprise, because it feels like it's vibe coding 2.0. It's like, okay, you don't need to code anymore. You are going to be able to actually go to the next level, even if you don't know how to do the infrastructure, because we're going to help you. So that's why it could be used by everybody, I think. But yeah, I think we know that the enterprise is where you make the most money. So I think that's why.
Can we run through this too? Because like AI coding has become like one of the hottest categories in technology, right? And again, because it's one of the best uses of these large language models. And just to give some context, right? So Cursor announced a $2.3 billion Series D at a $29 billion valuation just like 6 months ago. Well, now it's 7 months ago.
Yeah.
And they also said that they crossed $1 billion in revenue. So we know that this thing works. But are we surprised that a company like Cursor, which has their only job is writing code, didn't get, again, we talked again about like FDEs, right? Forward deployed engineers. And when we had Nick, I believe his name was, on the show, we talked about the fact that they were also doing that too. And are we not surprised that those FDEs didn't get feedback from Cursor that said, okay, the code writing individually is great, but how do we do this even bigger and help us architect the code that we're writing so that the code that we're writing actually has more reason for being, if that makes sense? Like, I can't believe that nobody told him that this was necessary, because on the flip side, Chamath and his team, just like the 8090 team, just came up with this out of nowhere.
So they started in 2024. So it's been like 2 years that they are.
They're kind of coming out of stealth right now. I mean, this is Series A, right? So it's not like their first fundraising either.
And I think the Cursor acquisition accelerated everything, right? They were like, look, we just got acquired for 60 billion. What are we doing, guys? Let's just wake up, right? Yes. Let's just
turn the lights on here.
For sure. I think this is what what happened here, right? It's really accelerated everything. But I think here, Michael, I think the Cursor and 8090, like my feeling based on what we said so far, is that maybe it's for different targets. Cursor maybe for the developers themselves. Okay, so that's the guys who are already split into two teams, like the guys who do the servers, the infrastructure, and the developers. It's always like
Yep.
two different teams, right? And so,
Yep.
and the developers, they are in charge of what? They are in charge of building the front end, building new features, and they are in charge of integrating with the backend. So there's another team who is responsible to make sure that the servers, the data, the database, and all of that is actually working fine. So then the developers can actually query that and make sure that the front end features are actually working. So I think that's why Cursor never really had maybe the idea or the need to go to that level of orchestration, because it's aimed at developers, and developers are stuck, I would say, into making software and coding. But I
Right.
think what Chamath want to do, if my feeling is correct, is actually to not target the developers. He may want to go to all the people who are not techie, the HR department, the sales people, all of these guys who can build software for themselves but can't because it's too hard, because the orchestration is too hard. I think it's vibe coding at scale. Like right now, if you let's take Salesforce for example. If your sales team has a couple of ideas how to make a custom Salesforce, right now they can open code, they can try, but it may be hard because they don't know how to orchestrate the data and stuff like that, and the tech team is already too busy to help them. So they can use 8090 and build it much better. And then you can give that to the finance team who can build their own software, to the HR team who can build their own deal, to the sales team who can probably like integrate it into Salesforce. And that's why Salesforce is leading the round, because they want to make sure they get the data. So then they can also evolve on their side to make sure that nobody is actually building a new Salesforce internally, and instead use their API, their connection to actually connect to everybody.
Yeah,
so
I mean, we did have another story last night about Slackbot potentially being hurt by Claude Tag, but yeah, this is exactly one of the reasons. But do you also know?
That's the
Sorry,
target.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the target. That's not for the developers. That's for everybody else in the company.
So I'm going to say two things. One of them is going to disagree with you a little bit, just to give a different perspective. Okay. But I don't know that I'm right. This is the way that I thought about it, right? So first of all, Salesforce Ventures has a $1 billion AI fund. Did you know that?
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that.
Do you also know that they've already deployed more than $850 million in 35 companies?
Oh, no. Okay.
Right. So this is not some random investment that they're making. This is part of an investment program that they have, an investment philosophy, an investment thesis that they have.
I mean, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think this is super smart. This is super smart.
Oh, I think that, look, we know we've interacted with the Salesforce team. How many dumb people did we meet?
Yeah, no,
I mean, they're so smart there.
It's true. Right? This is super smart. Like, I mean, like the first thing that we said when I was starting to get traction was, okay, maybe we don't have a SaaS apocalypse, right? Like maybe the software are going to die and all of that. So what's the first thing that you do? You say, okay, fine, let's just talk to everybody and let's just figure out what we need to become, right? Like, I mean, if I'm Salesforce, I'm like, okay, maybe there's a risk. Perfect. So, okay, what do I need to do? How do I adapt to that? And it feels like Salesforce is doing great, right? It feels like the adaptation to the new world of SaaS, to really understand what's their moat, what do they need to do? Do they have an advantage? Is there really a threat to their business? If yes, how do we change? How do we adapt? How do we get better? It looks like they navigate this phase like champions. Like really,
the other thing it gives them is if they're one of the earliest and one of the biggest investors in 8090, which again, weird name for a company, but like names are running out, so like fair enough. They could also buy it.
Yes, yeah, that's
right, and they're so close to it, and everybody knows Chamath, and he's not going to build a crappy company. But the other thing that I wanted to push back on, if you don't mind, is my perspective on this is a little bit different.
Okay.
I think what they're saying is that Cursor is an unfinished product.
Okay.
And I think what they're also saying is that Codex is an unfinished product, and that 5.5 as a code mechanism is an unfinished product, and that they forgot about how to help define requirements for building software, how to help manage the architecture, how to test it, how to document it, all this kind of stuff. And the documentation, I think, is actually super important, because remember, they want to deal with regulated enterprises, and the board of directors needs to understand like what the software is doing, because they're liable for it. That's the first part of this. The second thing as well is that every company that has a set of developers to which they've given access to, again, Codex and Claude 5.5, they also have an integrated IT team that needs help with managing the architecture, defining requirements, all that kind of stuff. And you're right, in this case, they give that, in my mind, I'm always thinking, what does the trading desk do and how do they interact with the IT team, right? Because that's what I did. But you can substitute HR for that as well. And those HR guys and gals are going to want to have a mechanism that gives the proper output for the requirements that they have, which then they can, if they can't vibe code on their own, if they just can't architect on their own, they can then give that to the development team that's responsible for working with them. So it's a slightly different perspective. And the last thing I would say is that for teams that are already using Cursor, and again, I love Cursor. We think they do a great job. Their revenue has increased to over $1 billion. That's great. But the teams that already use that can be stolen. Again, we know this just from other industries. Like the earliest purveyors of any particular product don't necessarily always win. I always use search as the perfect example of this, right? Like the original guys are gone. So I don't think that 8090 is particularly trying to steal other people's customers, but if other people look at it and go, well,
actually they do. Actually, Michael, I think I know what they are doing. I think I know based on what you just said. Wouldn't it be amazing if the orchestration is done at the company level? So when the HR department want to build
it has to
something,
be.
they already have all the proper access and
It has to
guardrails
be.
to
Yeah.
not break anything, but to still be able to build what they
So
want
that was
to
my
build.
point. I wasn't
Yeah.
saying you were wrong, but I was saying
Yeah.
there's another level to that.
Yes, I think
And that's what
that's
I
where
wanted
they
to add on
operate.
to it.
Because
Yeah.
like look, if like the only reason why you don't have coding access to our company OS is because I'm scared that you made a mistake. Not on purpose, but just because AI are not doing exactly what we ask them to do, right? And so basically that's a problem of guardrails, right? Like
You don't want to be the other story. You remember that travel story company where the guy was like,
yes.
I'm just going to delete the database from here.
Exactly. I don't want Undercover Media to make the headlines like the largest
That's my
media
point.
company in
So
the
Undercover Media
world.
is going to
Exactly.
institute what Goldman Sachs, an old Goldman Sachs policy, which was the no Wall Street Journal policy.
Exactly. So I don't want to be in the headlines for that. So that's why, like, to
Neither do I.
avoid this, you don't have access to any coding capabilities on our company OS, but you do have ideas. So how do we fix this problem? We need to create guardrails. We need to make sure that
Yep.
you have sandboxes, but you still be able to actually try and see if you can do something. But this orchestration layer to create the guardrails and the sandboxes is just insane. It's just very, and so that's why I've never built that, because it's just so hard, right?
Yeah.
And if 8090 operates at this level, which means they go to the undercover media management and they say, look, we are going to create all the guardrails, all the access, all the sandboxes. So then your tech team can build stuff that's cool, but also your HR team and your sales team, and everything is going to be coordinated. So your sales team can create the database, but only what you allow them to query, sorry, and same for the HR department. Now we are talking a real cool system now, because now you can let everybody become a developer basically inside of your organization, right? And so the pace of this software factory, right? Like how you can actually help the company build software across the entire board. So this vibe coding for all the employee basically, but with all the proper governance, sandboxes, access that everybody should have. This is really cool. Like, this is game changer, and that doesn't exist at the moment.
No, it doesn't. And here's the other thing. Remember the guy that made the joke of like, Codex and these automated AI coding software pieces? They didn't all they did was help you type faster. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you were going to write this code anyway, or at least code this good, but now it helped you type faster. And I think what 8090 is saying is, we don't want to just help you type faster. We want to help an entire company, as you suggested, build and maintain and architect software better.
Yes,
and that's a nuanced difference, but a very big difference.
This is huge because, like, imagine in a company with like 1,000 employees, right? Like, imagine a company with 1,000 employees who have 150 developers, right? So if tomorrow 900 employees can become a developer, like what happens, right?
But also,
And
I can
yeah,
remember plenty of instances where like the guys on the
yeah,
portfolio trading team wanted to build a piece of software in a specific way, and they're like, we can't
exactly.
do that because that's
Yeah,
not how the overall system works.
yeah,
And if you want to communicate with the single stock trading desk, you have to build it like this because we're going to do trades with them as well. And the individual coders may not have known that, but in this case, what they're saying is 8090 is going to organize all of that for you. So by definition, you're going to have
I
to
think so.
write code to that spec because that's
Yeah,
the only thing that you know, and everyone
yeah.
will have access to it as well.
Yep, yep. So I don't know exactly that they are doing that, right? Because we don't have any information about like their actual products,
That's what it sounds like.
but it really sounds like that. And if it goes in that direction, I see definitely the massive value, right? And so
Yeah, yeah.
over time, you may want to migrate your tech team that use Cursor, that use OpenClaw, that use any other orchestrator to actually coordinate with the entire team, right? Like with the entire rest of the company, right? Because they will need to be able to also use the tools that everybody's using, and it looks like a much, much, much bigger value proposition, right? And this
That's
is
why
really
so
cool. Yeah,
that's why I said
yeah,
like again, these other I don't want to keep saying the name of the same companies, but those products are unfinished. That's what they're
yeah,
suggesting here. Is that it's good for this thing, but you're missing all these other I wouldn't even say peripheral things. I would say um supplementary things and
yeah.
complementary things that go into building. Like this is just basically saying we're going to take your entire IT team, we're going to automate it,
Yes,
and then
yes,
we're
yes,
going to
yes,
give
yes, yes.
access to that automation to everybody inside the company.
Yeah.
And because of that, your software is going to get written better because
And
everybody's going to be coordinated in a way that they could not be before.
yep, yep. And then we can imagine a situation where this software factory idea, which is really, really
Mm,
cool, actually become like a software of one, basically, right? Like if you have a specific workflow as a sales guy, just build your own thing, right? Like just build what you need personally, right? You don't need to create a software for the entire team. Just build one that works for you, right? And if Bob builds something and Jack wants to use it as well, great. We can share it with Jack. But if Jack sees things another way or have another workflow or things a little bit differently,
mm,
then Jack can just build his own software of one as well, right? And both Jack and Bob get access to the same CRM, to the same data. The agent knows exactly how to query everything. They know exactly also to
exactly.
prevent Bob and Jack to make mistake and to delete the database. And so all the governance is already built in. And so it's easy for Bob and Jack to build their own software of one, right? Their own thing that just match their own workflows, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If that happens, if that's the idea, Michael, this is so cool. I love that. I really love
Right.
it. I also want to
And that's
invest.
the point that I was trying to make is that it's this big idea that they have
Yeah,
here,
it's super
right?
cool. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Because
And
like
to use,
because yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, because like think about like what you could build if you had access to all the data that we have, right?
Yeah.
Like today you need to ask me like when you have an idea, machine, can you do that? Can you change it? And sometimes we just don't do it because it just takes too much time and it's not a priority, right? But
Right.
once again, your workflow is slightly different than mine, or like maybe there's a little button that you would have. So if you can just build it yourself, right, and just do like your own thing, and
Mm,
on my side, I'm sure that you're not gonna break anything because all the guardrails are in place.
right.
Then this is super cool, right? And then do that at the scale of 1,000 people company, 10,000 people company, and you're sure that nothing is going to break. This is really, really great. I love that idea.
Why do you think they started with regulated industries?
Because I think this is the one where the adoption of AI is the lowest. I think it's
Right.
really
So I think
hard
the
for
bar
them.
to
Yeah,
the barrier to entry is the highest. It's so
yeah,
complicated.
exactly,
It's so
exactly.
confusing. It's so everything.
Yep,
And
yep, yep,
I
yep, yep,
think
yep.
what they're doing is they're taking the hardest thing first. So
Exactly.
if they can solve,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, that problem.
Also, they have much less competition there as well, right? Like at the end of the day, look, like everything that we just discussed is all about governance and guardrails mainly,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's really
Essentially
what you need, right? And this is
at scale. Yeah.
and at scale across your entire company, and also like all the data access and all of that, which is governance basically, right? And so
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody today is having like a SaaS or a platform that can actually help an insurance company fix this problem, right? So the competition at this level is non-existent on the orchestration side, right? There's people who do data, there's people who do this or that, but there is no orchestrator who said, hey, we are going to help all the insurance companies who really have a massive orchestration problem to actually orchestrate their AI across the board, right? So I think that's why. I think there's way less competition because it's much, much, much harder. Everybody went like the easier route, I would say, like Cursor, for example, just go to the developers, right? Because they are in tech,
Straightforward.
they understand, it's straightforward. They are both the user and the guys who build the tech. So the guy who build Cursor obviously use Cursor, so you have like a really close feedback loop. It's fast, it's easy, it's straightforward, it's good, and boom, that made a $60 billion company. Awesome, right? But I think here what Chamath is doing is like, okay, say, okay, gonna be a little bit slower, right? Because we're gonna go to the hard thing. But if it works, we are going like at here they are building a new Salesforce, but for every department of the company. I mean, not Salesforce competition, but Salesforce business model, right? Like we are going to work with the big guys. We're gonna integrate our software very deep into the organization. We are going to work with everybody. Is going to be very important for our client. They're gonna work with us for 20 years because we do something so good and so integrated that it's really hard to leave. And they have the potential to build like something as massive as Salesforce, for example.
Do you also think? Do you also? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Do you also think that this is one of? And we've talked about this before. We should come up with a name for this, actually.
Tell me.
But do you think this is one of those pieces of software that like every company needs, but no company would want to spend the time writing it just for themselves because there's not enough value in it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because somebody else writes the software for them, everybody's going to want to use it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I think so. I think like Max example as well, like in the chat. Like, thank you very much, Max, for sharing that.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Is part of the answer, right? Like, Max said to us that he built basically a feature for himself and for the company that is way better than any other software. And that's also our own experience, right?
Same.
Like
it's the same thing.
Like how many stuff I have rebuilt for our company OS that are just way better than everything else. Not because we are smarter, no, just because we can customize it to exactly what we need, and we can
and get rid of all the stuff we don't need to make it easier to use, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And we get rid of all the feature we don't need, all the button we don't need, and we add the extra little thing here and there that just is exactly what we want and what we need, right? And so then we end up in something that's fully customized, fully integrated with all of our data, and of course that's way better, right?
And Max is right. He said the stuff that he wrote is better than any paid option, and part of the reason why is because in most cases, you're paying for part of the software you're not using.
Exactly. Yeah, because the SaaS has been built for everybody. It hasn't been for you.
No,
right?
It wasn't built for you. It's built for everybody, and everybody is subsidizing everybody else at some level.
Exactly. And that's a software for everybody. We're here. So I think it's gonna take a little bit of like new mind shift, right? For people to understand. Like, for example, people like me, like you, Michael, or like Max, we already saw the potential, or we can rebuild this thing just by ourselves and then remove all these buttons and connect to that, and so then I can add all of these features. We get super excited, we build it, it works, we're super happy, right? But I don't think everybody thinks like this. So that's what the part of the company who is going to be excited, they are going to adopt like 80, 90 super fast. They're gonna love it, it's gonna be super amazing, and it's gonna be like super great. And then they're gonna be like some people in the company that are going to be like, okay, but how does that work? What can I do? It maybe take a little bit of education, maybe. But if you go to enterprise, maybe there's always one guy per team who has an idea, and that's enough, right? That if you have 100 people in HR, you don't need 100 new software. Maybe you do. I have no idea, but maybe the three guys who are excited are able to build something cool for the entire team, right? Maybe, right? So maybe it's going to be enough. The adoption can be super fast, and now it's going to be super great. I love that idea.
I mean, to be fair, on the portfolio trading desk, right, we had literally 2 gigantic pieces of software.
Okay. Yeah.
One did the trading. Like literally, all it did was connect to the exchange.
Yeah.
And the other piece of software did pre-trade and post-trade stuff. It accepted trades from clients, got them ready for the trading application, and then it took the trades in that were executed and created post-trade reports for some of the biggest fund managers in the world. Everything else we did like in spreadsheets. And my spreadsheet was different than, Ryan's spreadsheet, which was different than Anna's spreadsheet, which was different than Keke's spreadsheet. Like, it was just different.
that's the perfect example, right? Instead of
Yeah.
having a spreadsheet, you just build your own software of one, right?
Yeah,
And when you,
and if I could
yeah,
have got it connected, because what look, I keep telling you this, like I did this one trade, it's still stuck in my head, and the guy would be like, "Buy me the four biggest banks," and I'm like, "Measured by what?" Do you know what I mean? So we went back and forth on this, but I had a spreadsheet that did, and he's like, "Not those banks; it would change all the time," and I'm like, "Okay." If I could have built a robust piece of software that connected directly to the trading system or to the pre-trade system, which I could not do,
mm,
it would have been 1,000 times easier and more
it makes
efficient, and I
sense.
knew what I
Yeah,
wanted anyway, but I
exactly.
had to put it in a spreadsheet, cut and paste it into like it just engendered so much risk, and that's just for a trading system. Imagine that in healthcare or in the
Exactly.
government or in the military, somewhere where it's like has real consequences that
Yeah.
aren't just money.
And imagine how much more efficient and how much better you would do your job if you could do that, like your own software of one, right? Like all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
that's my point.
you're gonna be way faster, you're gonna make more money, close more deals, do everything better, and so you
Yep.
have a real incentive to actually build your own thing, right? Like the same way Max and I, we are rebuilding everything to make our company much more efficient, right? Now, if you do that at the scale of the sales team, of the HRDD department, of the marketing
Yeah.
team, now it's a full different story, right? And all of these people, they are still stuck in AI V1 with the chat. Maybe they are trying a little bit of Codex and Claude and all of that, but it's hard because they can't connect to any database because everybody's scared to give them access, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
should be,
Yeah,
right?
it should be.
And they should
Yeah.
be. But if tomorrow you can change that and you can give access, like for example, to the guys on the trading floor to the exact database with all the data and build a software of one, and everybody can customize to exactly what they need. This is cool. I love this idea.
No, I
It's
love this idea too, and I
yeah,
was just thinking, like, maybe the sales guy should have had access to this as well, so he could have
yeah.
just, like, said, "Here's exactly what I want you to do."
Yeah, and think into a team, right? Like, okay, Bob, you need that. Jack, you need that. Okay, like let's put the data like this and like that, and maybe Jack, you want this button here. What exactly do you need for me to help you with this? Like,
Mm.
it could be super powerful, right? You can see
And
like,
I think, like, the more I think about this, the more I think you're right, like, it could have engendered more business as well, because if I could have built that sort of add-on piece of software, and then everybody else on the team had access to it because it became part of the main application,
yeah,
then they could have sold that product, which was
yeah,
literally just like my product. They could have
yes,
sold that
yes,
product to a
yes,
bunch
yes,
of other people or customized it for a different sector or different names
yeah,
and stuff like that. So yeah, but again, imagine it not just in trading,
mhm,
but in healthcare
yeah,
or in the government or someplace again where it
yeah.
has more consequences if more people have access to better technology.
Exactly. So yeah, I think this idea of software of one is actually super cool, right? I really like that. That's exactly what we are doing at our scale,
Yeah, yeah.
because we understand tech enough to be able to do it,
Mhm.
right? But now I think that's why I think the real client, the real user of 1890 are all the other people who are in marketing, who are in HR, who don't know anything about tech. They can't build something at the scale that we can do because we know tech. And so you know what? Let's just give them access to agency coding with all the proper guardrails and sandboxes and everything.
So here's another interesting question before we move on to the next topic. How do you measure like whether all this stuff is actually making you more productive?
Like the AI ROI.
Yeah, I don't want to use ROI per se. I
Okay.
thought about saying it, but just like because I don't think there's a dollar value you can put on it, but at some level, you have to be able to analyze like, is our software better?
Mhm.
Is it faster? Are we writing it more efficiently? Are our developers writing, are they better? Is it easier for them to understand what the overall architecture is like without us having to explain to them every single time they write a new piece of software? Right. And I don't think it's just like how many lines of code did Cursor write, because who cares, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you want the code to be more elegant than like a million lines. You want it to be 250,000 lines to just have it be much better code. Again, easier to maintain for a bunch of different reasons, right? So
Yep.
I just wonder like how you would measure like how effective this is. Do you know what I mean?
So I think it's pretty simple. Like if I had to ask myself this question, I
Mhm.
like that's another reason why I like the 1890 idea, is because at the end of the day, build your own software of one, and I can just use the exact same KPI that I've always used with you. How much sales are you making? and if your software help you do more sales, then this is how I'm going to see the ROI of this implementation. If you don't make more sales, then it means it's just not working. I don't think we need to change the KPI much for everybody outside of the tech team. Like,
Yeah, but
they
I'm
already
just
have
talking.
a
Yeah, but I'm
KPI.
talking about for people inside the tech team, right? How do you measure their productivity and the writing of code productivity, right? Because it has a cost.
Yep.
All of this orchestration stuff has a cost associated with it. 8090 is not going to do this for free. If they use the existing model, there may be a token cost as well. Although you and I have spoken about like maybe they're just going to move to an open source model. We can, we don't have to relitigate that. But the point is that like none of this is going to be free. So how do you measure? I guess ROI is the right thing. Like, do we go down this road because it just makes everything better? And that from ideation to creation to implementate to testing to implementation, that it's just so much faster. I'm just curious, like how you would measure that.
Yeah, I don't know like how to do that at scale on the tech team, but I think this is one of the questions that they have to answer, right? Like for the tech companies that are currently spending massive budget on AI, right? Like we got to make sure that actually we are making progress on that. But I think this is not for tech teams. I think this is for marketing and sales and HR and all the people who are not in tech.
Okay, you and I are gonna agree to disagree on that because I think it's for them too, but I think it's way more important for the tech team staff because they're
Okay.
the ones. Because I'll tell you why, the marketing team's not going to create the overall software architecture for a firm.
No, so that's why 1890 is doing it. They'll
Yeah, that's
build
my
the
point.
orchestrator, and then the marketing team can build their own software of one. Just
Yeah, but
full
so my question
1890.
is, how do you measure the productivity gains or the ROI on whether 8090 is actually worth it? That's what I want to know.
So then you check the editing KPI of the marketing team. I don't know. For example, let's say they need to do 100 leads for
But it
the
might
sales
just not
team.
be software led. It might just be like a bunch of idiots in marketing because good marketing guys and gals are great. Do you know what I mean? But idiots in any department are going to be bad, kind of thing, right? So even if the software is insanely great,
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, yeah. That will depend on the ideas of the team, right? Like the
yeah,
team will need to have ideas for sure, right? Like to be able to build these softwares and they will need to think outside the box. That's why maybe not everybody's gonna be able to do that, right? Maybe
no,
just a little part of the team will be able to implement something.
exactly,
Because once again that we see that around us, right? Like not every business owner is building their own company OS with
no,
code right now, right?
no,
Like
no, no,
it's just not the case, right? So, and even in the tech world, not everybody's doing that. But imagine in outside the tech world, like restaurants, right? Like
yeah,
people doing like the traditional businesses, they are really, really far away from using AI at the moment at the level that we do. And so that's why it's a massive opportunities. And same for healthcare and insurance and all of these sectors. They are not using AI at the fullest yet. And if they target these
for sure,
segments and they help them get AI everywhere across the organization, something that I think really interesting as well is that looks like I can sign up right now. It's $200 per user per month to have access to it. They say it's for enterprise, but if I can sign up, then it's not really for enterprise, it's for everybody.
Well, wait a second. I mean,
Yeah.
isn't Undercover Media is an enterprise, right?
Yeah,
What are we
massive
doing?
enterprise, one of the largest enterprise in the world. But most of the time, like the software sales cycle is like, hey, you have to contact us, and then you do a call and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? Like you cannot just sign up on the website. So that's
It
not the
would
way
be
it
pretty. It
works.
would be pretty interesting to see how it worked, right? To see if it could
Yeah.
replace some of the stuff that. Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, maybe we can spend some time if we find from hour 24 to hour 27 per day. Maybe we can we can try this and see how it works.
So, do you want to talk about Meta's Brain2Qwerty version 2?
Let's do it.
Let's transition into that because
Yeah,
that sounds fascinating to me.
next topic.
Okay. So Meta has shown a major step forward, apparently, allegedly,
Okay.
in non-invasive brain to text decoding. Okay. And how does it work? So Brain2Qwerty, I just, for some reason, Martin, I love this name. I normally hate these names, but this name just like rolls off the tongue.
Okay.
Yeah, and whoever came up with this internally should get as much money as the lady who designed the Nike logo, which was nothing. I think she got $25. But anyway, it uses magnetoencephalography MEG, and it reads brain activity while people type sentences and then uses deep learning and fine-tuned language models to reconstruct the intended text. So it's trying to take like just your brain waves and understand what you're thinking
Okay.
and then transition that into typing. That's what the QWERTY reference is, right? So it's trying to take the stuff that's inside your brain using magnetoencephalography, which is called MEG, to read that stuff. And it's like, here's the thing though, the best brain, normally what they would do is they would implant something into your brain.
Yes.
Right. So they'd literally have to do brain surgery on you to connect some electrodes to your brain. It's a surgical implant. Nobody wants to do that anymore. And, again, the signals are probably going to be cleaner than the MEG stuff, but do you want to do that?
I don't want to put an implant into my brain. Nope.
No, the surgical risk is too high.
Yeah.
I once had a neurosurgeon tell me, oh, you need to have this surgery where we put a tube in your brain down through blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, but no, thank you. Anyway, Meta is reporting they have about 61% average word accuracy, with the best reaching around 78% accuracy. I don't know. It just seems kind of cool. What were you going to say?
So if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
I put this thing, the MEG. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It's a huge word.
Come on. Encephalography, man. It's easy. Magnetoencephalography. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That thing, my God.
Yeah, that thing. The thing you just said.
So you put this on your head, and then basically what they did is that they asked 9 participants, each typing on the keyboard for 10 hours wearing this thing, right?
Yep.
And
22,000 sentences. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. And then they had basically the 2 inputs, right? Like what the guy was typing on the keyboard and the input also from the MEG, right? So like they had the answer, I would say, like what the guy typed on the keyboard, and they also tried to get the data from the brainwave themselves.
Right.
And when they compared, they had a 61% accuracy. So they were really, really close, I would say, right?
I don't know. 61% actually is not that close, but
yeah,
it's way closer than 0. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just getting the idea for all of this kind of technology. And again, I'll let you talk in a second. It's just like, is it getting closer?
Yep. So character accuracy is 69%. So which means that when you type something, like for example, you type on D, your brain does something, and they are able to guess what you've typed 69% of the time. That's cool. And word accuracy, 78%. And it's up from 61 in V1, percent character accuracy, and 48 word accuracy in V1 as well. Right. So it's really going up, like pretty fast actually. So,
but the question is, why would you want to use this? Like, in what's the use case for this?
That's a good question. Do they talk about that?
They do. So the idea would be, this. Like, let's say you can't type.
Okay.
But you're a great software engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, let's say you're paralyzed, or you lose the ability to use your hands, or like, you break, your right hand gets cut off in like a sawing accident.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't type in the way you normally could, but your brain still knows what you want to write.
Yes.
So that is an incredible way to do this. And then again, couple this with think about this.
Good point.
Think about if 8090 has access to this technology.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's not just like the coding that you're talking about. And I don't think that's just what they're talking about here, but now you have access to like all of the ideas you have for architectural, for teaching, for all this other stuff. If you can actually harness the brainwaves to understand what that person is actually thinking, and reducing the noise, right? Because there's a lot of other shit going on in your brain that has nothing to do with that particular thing that you're thinking. Right? Because there's semantics. I don't know if you know what semantics mean. Let me get the right definition for it. Yeah, so relates to the literal meaning, interpretation, or context. And I think this is the more important thing here, context of language, symbols, or logic. So every one of these systems has a semantic layer that's trying to figure out what's the context.
Okay.
Right? Of this language that you're using.
Okay.
Right? Because I can say something like, oh, that's a dog. And it can mean like a barking thing with hair on it.
Yeah.
or I can say that's a dog, which means that's a bad idea. Do you know what I mean? Same exact phraseology, but with the context is different. So that if the semantics are different, then it has to understand that. So if it can understand semantics as well, it's a huge breakthrough.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it made me think about, like, you remember, like, the robotics company that we talked to during AI engineer, like they were
Yep.
doing something to actually decode that is a brain wave as well for painting. You remember, like somebody with
Yep.
disabilities could
Yep.
just like put the MEG on their
I remember that guy. Yep.
on
He
their
was
head.
also at Smart
Super
AI
AI.
as well.
Yes,
But
yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
Super AI,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah, we saw him at Super AI as well. And then you had the robot actually being able to paint what you were thinking in your mind as well,
Mhm.
right? Like, which was
Mhm.
super, super cool, very impressive. Maybe that the painting is like V1, right? Like to just see it works, and then they will be some overuse use cases. And maybe like the same type of idea that they are trying to do here, right? Like, okay, how can we make it useful? How can we make it for people with disabilities, for example,
Mhm.
and maybe other use cases as well? Yeah, it's really interesting to see that. Pretty cool.
Well, think about somebody who has muscular dystrophy or
Yeah.
arterial lateral sclerosis, which is a really acute form of MD.
Okay.
Your brain's still working,
Hmm.
but your body's not working at all. None of your muscles can move.
Hmm.
Imagine how much easier it would be to communicate with somebody if you could just think the thing you were saying
Yeah, and then you just get somewhere.
and it just either typed it out or it got sent to like a voice image thing or
Yeah.
whatever, because we do have voice technology now that can actually say things that you could say. And it just means that that kind of person then could talk.
Yeah. I'm really wondering how it works. Like, how do the brain wave actually reflect what I'm thinking? like what is it actually? I'm really wondering that. Like, just this part. It looks like science fiction in a way, right? Like,
But is it so again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I've had
okay,
this thought for the longest period of time.
okay, tell me.
As smart as we are, and I always reference my brother's a neurosurgeon, right? So he knows
Mhm,
more about this than I do. But even with all the stuff we don't know like anything really about how the brain
mhm,
works.
mhm, mhm,
And every time they try to figure this stuff out, we learn a little bit more,
that's true.
right? So if you just think about, if we talk about like the best GPUs and CPUs out there and blah, 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 and all this other crap, right? But then just compare that to what a brain can do.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not even close. And I know
It's
everyone's
true.
going to say, like, yeah, well, a good GPU can do like a billion teraflops of calculations in 1 second, and the brain can't do that. And you're like, yeah, but while your brain is calculating stuff, it can also pick something up, throw a ball, drive a car, like
Yeah,
do
no,
a
it's
whole
true.
bunch of other things.
It's true. Like,
You know what I mean?
this is something you've been talking about a lot. Like, all the problems that we have with AI, like all the context, and sometimes AI doesn't understand what's going on, and it cannot do two things at the same time, and all of that. It's stuff that we take for granted with our brand, right? Like, we don't even think about it. We just do it, right? It's
Yep.
fully. It's something that the AI, like the immediate memory that we have, that like you don't need, Michael, when I meet you, to give me a book about you, like that include all the integration, like all the discussion, everything that we've done over the last 5 years. And then before I speak to you, I don't need to read the book. And that's exactly how we run AI right now. We need to give him again all the context, all the information, all the data, so then he can actually knows what's going on without starting blank, right? That's how we use AI right now, where our brain just somehow knows, right? Like, I know you, I can recognize you, I have access to all the context, like what's the short-term context to be able to have this conversation with you, but
Just
also all the long-term
imagine
context.
if every time we met each other, we had to go over it again.
But this is how we do AI now, Michael. Like, if you do a Claude P query right now to actually launch Claude, like just a default Claude P, he knows nothing. He's just gonna say, hello, Martin. And I'm not just gonna say hello, that's it. He doesn't know who I am. The only way he knows what's in the cover media, what's AGTP, who we are, is to build this context to actually put in the prompt every time
Right.
I launch a Claude P process. All right. This is the only way we have right now. And this is why we need to be able to fine tune. This is why we need to be able to post train every model, because this makes no sense. I mean, it's cool in AI V1, right? Because we can use it now, it works, and all of this. but it's definitely not efficient, right?
So there
And
was this,
yeah,
sorry, there was this great phrase that I read a few days ago, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but the main meaning was we like literally cheer for computers when it does X, and we completely ignore it when a toddler does the same thing.
yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. Like when you think about it, like the toddler at 4 years old, he remembers his family, right? Like he knows
Yeah. He
one
knows. He's like, that's my
once
mom,
again.
that's my dad, that's my
Exactly.
dog.
He doesn't need a book with images that tell him, okay, this is
He doesn't
dad.
need API connectivity to his dad just to understand, like, that's my dad.
How funny would that be, Like just like the contents book, the data layer book for kids to know where they are and who they are. But it's pretty it's pretty
Totally.
fast for a human to be able to get all of these things, right? And
Right.
I think this is exactly your point. Like we really underestimate what we are doing on a daily basis with our brain, right? And it's absolutely amazing when you think about it.
So having said all that, I don't think it
Yeah.
minimizes what Meta is working on. I don't think they're
Mhm.
the only people working on this, but because of who they are
Yeah.
and because of their access to data and their access to all these users and stuff like that, it's going to be easier for them to test this stuff. And also because they're developing a whole host of other sort of physical and tactile technologies, right, through
Yeah.
AR
Yeah.
and VR and all this other stuff that they're doing. They've been working on this, and to them, so the other term we need to use here is BCI. That's a
Mhm.
brain computer interface. And they've been working on this now for a while. This is version 2, obviously. So version 1, didn't get built in a day either.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is significant.
Also, like maybe generate a whole new interface for interacting with computers. Like I
Yeah,
hate
that's the whole point.
voice, right? That I hate voice. I don't like to use my voice to actually interact with my AI or to type things, right? Like with voice dictation. So I type everything I do, but I think about it as well, right? Like, so what about like I would just open, WhatsApp and then I just think about the message, it's sent and done, right? Like
Right. So,
that.
but this is dangerous though, right? Because your brain, so in between your brain and your mouth is a filter.
Mhm. No, it's true. Yeah.
Right, because if everything your brain was thinking somehow either got printed out or said,
Like Michael, you need to change the thumbnail. That's what I say. But what my brain is saying
you
is like,
stupid,
what
complete
is this
boneheaded idiot.
thumbnail? It sucks so much. It's so bad. How come I receive this?
Why do I have to deal with a loser like you on a daily basis?
You are right. We need a filter.
You don't want all that shit going out.
It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. We need a filter. Yes. So there is a little bit of danger here, but we are not there yet. It's not commercially valuable. We can't buy it, so we're safe, Michael.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
We are safe. So
For now,
Sean just arrived. Our guests for just
go for it.
after. So I will leave you here, guys. It was really great topics. Thank you very much for joining us. And I will leave you, Michael, with Sean. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Martin. I look forward to bringing Sean in. So
Yep.
let's get him in as soon as possible. Thank you.
See you tomorrow, everyone. Bye bye.
Okay, I'll do a little bit of commentary here because I just wanted to talk about a couple more things, and then you can bring Sean in. We did say that the reported average word for accuracy, and Martin was mentioning this stuff, was 61%, and 78% for the best participant. So at some level, this is not ready for real world usability, whether for whether for medical patients or anything else. It's just not ready for it yet. But I like to talk about it, and Martin and I do this a lot. We like to talk about directionality. Is it going in the right direction? And one of the reasons why I mentioned ALS is because I have direct experience with it. So my grandmother, who was mathematically brilliant, had arterial lateral sclerosis, also better known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and communicating with her as her muscles deteriorated became very, very, very frustrating and very difficult. And if she'd had a MEG system, because her brain was working perfectly fine, like it didn't shut off until the day she passed. So the idea that something could have been connected to her brain and she could have communicated with her children, her grandchildren, or her husband would have been super powerful. And frankly, even at 60 something % accuracy, it would have been way better than the system that they created to actually communicate with her, which was just stultifyingly frustrating. So the fact that this is like a research breakthrough per se is good, but it's not a medical breakthrough yet. But I can see so many potential uses for it. And again, not just in medicine, but in plenty of other places where being able to think something and then have it activate itself, whether in text, in voice, or even in video. I mean, I can imagine some places where design, or even like controlling a drone, go a little bit to the left, go a little bit to the right, or just think about it. I've already tested a DJI drone where it can look at my hand movements. And if I move my hand up or move my hand down, the drone kind of adjusts its height. And also, if I move it to the left, to the right, or whatever, I can make it stop by putting a stop sign up. But the idea that you can then integrate this MEG technology and BCI, so the brain-computer interface technology, into even something as simple as a drone mechanism would also be super useful, particularly in cases where drones are being used to do physical analyses of buildings and farms and stuff like that. So that's just another thing to think about here as we move forward. Okay, let's try to bring our guest, and let's try to bring in Sean Cheyney, the EVP for Global Business Development at QCIC. This should be a super interesting conversation, actually. Sean, I am super duper, man. How are you doing? It's great. Where are you based?
Chicago. How about you?
I'm based in Bangkok, so not that close to Chicago. Anyway, it's great. It's great to. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, just a little bit. I was in Cannes last week, so you come back from Cannes, and everybody ends up with a little bit of a cold when you come back from Cannes, when all you've been doing is talking, drinking wine, not sleeping, not eating much, and wearing your body down.
It's so funny. I listen to tons of podcasts, and I don't know if you know what this term parasocial means, but parasocial means like you feel like you know this other person because you listen to them podcast so much. And I listened to the Daily Beast podcast just because I think it's interesting. And the woman who runs that show was actually in Cannes. You're talking about Cannes Lions, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so she was there as well. So that's the only reason why I know about. If you had said to me I was in Cannes, I would have presumed you're at the film festival. But knowing what you do, and then knowing what was going on, it was super hot there as well, wasn't it?
It was unbelievably hot. They're going through a crazy heat wave. And when you're walking back and forth, and it's hard to complain. You're walking along the Crozet, which is basically a walkway along right by the beach. So it's hard to complain. It's absolutely gorgeous there. And you're drinking wonderful French wine all day long, having great conversations in a beautiful environment. But it is absolutely exhausting.
The view from Cannes onto the Mediterranean is like no other. It's really beautiful. It's a high quality problem. Okay, look, Sean, thank you again for joining us. We wanted to have you on because we wanted to understand how AI powered in-store audio just helps retailers turn these physical locations into like media networks that improve customer experience, drive sales, and create new advertising revenue. But maybe before we dig into the details, you can tell us a little bit more about the important work that QSIC does, and maybe even tell us why you're in Cannes as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The reason that I was in Cannes was representing QSIC and to have conversations with retailers around the world, and also our business partners and our clients as well. It's always a great place when you have all the industry's top people all together to share knowledge, share the challenges that people are having, share the solutions that people are finding, and it's a great knowledge share. It's really information overload that you're able to take back, synthesize, and then move forward in your business. It's a great way to grow things. But the reason that that I joined QSIC actually goes to the work that QSIC is doing.
Tell me.
It goes back. I've been involved in the retail media space now since 2013.
Oh, wow.
When I joined a company called Triad Retail Media, that was the first retail media agency. They're actually the agency that created Walmart's retail media program that is now Walmart Connect, and ran that for well over a decade.
Interesting.
And having been in the space for a long time, I was very familiar with retail media in the online area, where you can measure everything very definitively. There's a lot of things you can do around attribution. You can really hone in on the sale. Did I have an exposure? Did I have a sale? And when I would look at the in-store space, whether that be music with audio in the store, whether that be screens in the store, there was a dramatic gap, a big drop-off in the level of measurement and the level of planning.
Right? Because I see this stuff everywhere, and I was just always curious, like, how it works. Sorry, I was just excited. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it got me really curious. And this started for me probably about 5 years ago, even before I had heard of QSIC. And I saw that, and I said, there's a big gap there. Why would anybody spend money in the store if they don't know if it's performing? Right. Then I'd look at it and say, well, brands still are spending money. There's got to be some ways. And I realized that even though there was a big gap, brands and retailers were doing whatever they could, using whatever was at their disposal to measure. And most were just relying on their media mix modeling. They're relying on their MMM modeling.
So what does that mean? What does media mix modeling mean?
So it's a very complicated process, and I'm by far not an expert in it.
That's okay.
But it's taking all of your various touch points that you have, all of your various components, and looking at it. So you're not looking in a vacuum, and then looking at your retailer performance, in this case, retailer performance data across all the channels, and trying to make sense of it and say, where should be getting attribution? How are things actually performing? So it's a very high level view to try to look and say, is something working? Is this channel working? Is this campaign over here working? But it looks at campaigns after a campaign is done. So unlike the online world of retail media that I was used to, which is, hey, what happened last day, last hour, last week, last 15 minutes. This was looking at a far back window after a campaign's done, where me as a marketer, I can't make any pivots.
Right. You can't change anything because it's already passed. Yeah,
exactly. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And so I started writing about this gap in the market and this gap. And if somebody figures out what I was calling at the time the missing link of retail media measurement, which was trying to really understand and measure, is an in-store tactic working, whether that be audio or screens. And I actually had left the online world and went over and built the retail media business for Vistar Media, which is in the digital out-of-home space, and was there for a year. And even when I was there, I was saying, this is great. They have some methodologies here. They're getting closer to the pin, but it's still not there. And right around that time, I was introduced to QSIC, and I saw the measurement that they were doing there. And I saw the people they were bringing on board, people with histories working at great companies that are very data-driven, like Kroger, dunnhumby, and Amazon, companies like that really have gone much further in their measurement, and looked at the measurement that was being built and said, they're onto something. And what it really is taking the performance, taking the retailers' in-store transactional data, their POS data,
right,
and using that to dictate, using that as the base, not only in the planning to understand when people are most likely to buy. So doing a better job in the planning piece, which is another gap in the in-store piece.
So can I just jump in for a second? So are you suggesting that you would look at and this, I'm simplifying, obviously, so this is not the whole thing, but like taking all the POS data, understanding like when those purchases were made, what else was going on when those purchases were happening, and what the sound or the campaign was at the time that was actually going on. So somehow coordinating all that data together and saying, what's the relationship? What is the attribution between, let's just say there were no screens, but it was just music that was playing, between the audio that was playing, not just music, any kind of audio, and the purchasing that took place. If we see something spike or drop and stuff like that, that all that data was then being coordinated together and then being analyzed.
Yeah. So what's happening is, in the past, historically, that level of coordination wasn't happening with in the store with screens or audio. It wasn't happening at all. They were sort of doing maybe pre and post measurements.
Yep.
What happened before, what happened after. It's definitely not scientific. And the difference was when I looked at QSIC was taking the retailer's point of sale data, analyzing to say, when are people most likely to buy certain products?
Right.
Let's take an energy drink product in a convenience store,
Yep.
for example. Well, if you look at it, it's going to be pretty predictable what we think. It's mostly in the morning, Monday through Friday.
Right.
But if you look all the way down to the store level, you're going to find that some stores are different and have different patterns. And so in the planning process, you need to be able to drill down, because you don't want to play an ad, whether it be in a screen or audio, for a product that is not being purchased during that time. You're wasting your opportunity there. So that's one piece. That's the planning piece.
Right.
But then on the measurement piece, what you were alluding to,
Mm-hmm.
it's then taking a look, and the methodology that QSIC was using was absolutely mind-boggling. I've never seen it up until that point. I'd never seen it being done anywhere else, and I still haven't seen it being done anywhere else.
Go ahead.
Whereas they're looking at, number one, what is the dwell time in the store? So most companies are just looking and saying, we're going to attribute all the sales. But we all know that products are going to be sold whether or not there's an ad being played in the store or not.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be a baseline. So analyzing what that baseline is, but then only attributing a sale to whatever that dwell period is in the store. So if it's a convenience store, for example, it would be 5 minutes, for example.
Right.
But if I'm trying to attribute a sale for a purchase that was made 20 minutes after an ad played, that's not really fair. It's giving too much credit to that ad campaign, versus the way QSIC is doing it is saying, all right, let's only attribute within that window when somebody was in a store and had a likelihood to hear an ad, if we're talking about audio, for example, and likely heard that ad. But then more importantly, and the thing that brands care about most, is looking at the incrementality.
Right.
So using a test and control methodology, which can be done, a lot of companies will use holdouts. We have now switched to a model where we're doing exposed versus non-exposed.
What does that mean?
So an exposed would be, I'm in the store within 5 minutes of making a purchase, within 5 minutes of an ad playing, I purchased that product.
I got it. So they were exposed to the ad or not exposed to the ad. Got it.
Now, if I make a purchase for that same product 20 minutes after an ad played, that would be non-exposed. I probably didn't hear that ad.
Yep.
So that way we can go the same store comparison for exposed versus not exposed.
Right.
And then analyzing and saying, what is that lift? What is that lift for the people who were exposed to the ads versus not exposed to the ads? And really identify what that incremental lift is. Because that's where a brand is going to look and say, is the spending on this ad campaign worth it? Am I getting that increase in incrementality that far surpasses what I'm investing in this campaign?
It
and
almost
that
sounds...
level, and it sounds simple. It's actually very complicated in the way, very sophisticated in the way it's done. But looking at it that way really hones in, and it does it in a way where we're not creating new metrics. We're not creating new things that now marketers have to learn. We're using metrics that marketers are very familiar with: return on ad spend, incrementality, incremental ad spend, and looking at things all the way down to a segment or a store level. It's playing into the metrics that marketers know and they trust.
So it almost, you're in Chicago, you said, right?
I am.
You'll see where this is going in a second, but are you originally from Chicago?
I'm not. I'm originally from Southern California.
Okay, fair enough. But you're in Chicago, hopefully for more than like a minute.
I've been in Chicago now for 30 years. Yep.
Okay, fine. So are you a football fan at any level?
To some degree, yeah, absolutely.
It just sounds like DVOA to me.
The Bears are painful to watch, but yeah.
Well, Caleb Williams is getting better, right? But it just sounds like DVOA to me, and DVOA is this defense adjusted value over average. So this idea of like, what was the impact of this thing above the thing that we know is always going to happen? And it sounds like you're saying that they're doing this in the retail space as well, in the sense that we know that we're going to sell 10 of these things today. But if we sold 35 of them, now we have to figure out why. And that's the DVOA calculation as well. It's like, well, the other team didn't score, but what do they normally score anyway? Kind of thing. and it ends up being super cool. Are there specific things that change like inside the stores, like sensors or, cameras that are watching, all this other stuff that made this possible? Do you know what I mean? Like what changed in the retail space that made this possible?
Yeah, we don't rely on this and any sensor data. We don't really need it, because what we're doing is we're taking the transaction data. So we know when a transaction happened, timestamp to the store. So we know that information. That hasn't changed. And then in addition to that, we know when an ad played, timestamp to a store. So we're just using that correlation. Now, if you're talking about screens and understanding, did somebody have an opportunity to see?
Right.
And we're ingesting and using that information. Now at QSIC, we're a full system for executing all of it for audio in the store, but our intelligence layer can plug into a screen provider, for example. So when you're talking about screens, there's a little bit more complexity. We can ingest sensor data. We're not reliant on sensor data because, again, we're looking at the timestamp of the ad playing. We're doing the attribution window, whether that's fixed in the case of a convenience store or in a larger format store like a big grocery store or a home improvement store or a consumer electronics store. We're doing that based on the consideration of the purchase, on what SKU is being purchased, as well as the basket size. So if I go into a local grocery store, a large grocery store, for example, then if I have 3 items in my basket, well, I was probably in the store for maybe 8 minutes. But if I have 30 items in my basket, I was probably in there for 45 minutes.
I was going to say.
And so we can slide that attribution window, which is also key. But those are, again, things that we know that we're not reliant on additional tech.
Are brands making adjustments in real time as well? In the sense that if they can see the impact of changing the audio or adding in, some sort of, what's the right word? Like call to action. I don't know a better way to say this, that they know that it's specifically if at a certain time when certain other things are taking place inside of a retail space, that if an audio is either changed or adapted to what's going on there, that people are more likely to buy. Are we doing this in real time as well?
So our platform is actually optimizing toward that very thing in real time. So it's taking it's taking the signals we know. We know when products, what we call our demand profile. We know when the product is in highest demand in the store based on heat mapping and based on 12 months of historical data from the retailer to understand when that product is sold. We start to understand seasonality, seasonality changes as well. We also start to understand other aspects, weather, and how that affects certain things.
Sure.
You're going to sell more ice cream when it's hot out, for example. We start to understand those patterns, and the platform will make those adjustments. The platform is generating ad schedules per store, per day, per hour.
Oh, wow.
And so it's shipping out. So it's making those adjustments on an hourly basis.
It would be interesting to know because I don't know what kind of audio is being put out there, but it would be interesting to note if that audio could also be changed on the fly. Do you know what I mean? Like we're almost there.
Yeah, it absolutely can. So we take in signals and we can make adjustments. Weather is a great signal, for example. So we can have audio ready to go, and sort of like an if-then type of statement in the early coding days, where you have, if this is happening, then play this, play this ad, for example, use this variable that comes into play, using ice cream as an example again. But the system will know that and can make those adjustments on the fly, which is important because if you just had to have somebody sitting in front of a screen making those decisions, you just couldn't do it faster. You need to have the machine to be able to make those decisions at scale, especially when you're talking about a retailer that could have tens of thousands of stores.
Yeah. What role does like the connectivity between the audio, some kind of IoT device, like I can't exactly specify what it is, and artificial intelligence in then unlocking audio systems that you might not have been able to, stuff with those audio systems you might not have been able to do before, because you have now the AI component that can talk to the IoT component that can then talk to the audio component.
Yeah, so I'd say at this point we're not really doing that. So there's not really any, and I'll just use an example of a large consumer electronics chain that maybe has home appliances that also are IoT devices as well.
Yeah.
So, talking to the refrigerator, the Samsung refrigerator in the store, for example, we're not doing that today. Not to say that that won't happen in the future, and that it could happen in the future because our systems absolutely could. But that's the beauty of using our AI learning that we have that sits behind everything, and the nimbleness of the system that can push out to any device. So the same way that we can push those ad schedules that I mentioned to a CMS for a screen in the store.
Yeah,
we could, in theory, although we haven't done it yet, we could push that to other IoT devices, for example. It's not a use case that we have today. Now, if we do have that use case, of course, we're going to entertain it.
How do you balance this idea of, obviously you want to monetize every customer that comes in or every sort of sales opportunity, but how do you balance that, particularly from an ad and a brand perspective, with just the ambiance or the atmosphere inside the store? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's a saying that I like to use is, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
And we've seen that in the early days of monetization online. I would tell people, I would say, you don't want your website, for example, you don't want it looking like a NASCAR jumpsuit.
No.
There's no reason to make it look like a ransom note. Retailers, when they're doing retail media, there's three stakeholders in the equation. There's the retailer, there's the brand whose product is being advertised, but most importantly, there's the customer. And retailers and brands, they get the dollar signs in their head and they forget that there's a customer involved.
Right.
And they sometimes will forget the customer experience is important. The way we look at it is the customer experience sits at the center. It is the most important thing. If you nail that, the other things will take care of themselves. And so when it comes to the audio itself, we're focusing on the music, all licensed music, and we're localizing it down to the store level. People are going to have different likes and dislikes for music in Austin, Texas, as they are in Long Island. As an example.
You think?
And so we want to make sure that we're playing music that people walk into a store and it elevates their mood.
Yeah, it's funny because I just wrote down music. If you looked at my notes, I just wrote down music. I was going to ask you about it, so keep going because I'm glad you segued perfectly.
It's one of those things. We want to make sure that we're localizing that music to the likes and dislikes, not only to the customers but also the employees. Remember, the employees are in there all the time. You want to make them in a good mood as well. So elevating that, but then also the advertising itself. We want to make sure that it's in a voice that is local to them. If you're playing somebody with a really thick New York accent and you're playing that ad, unless it fits into whatever the brand is being advertised.
Right.
If you're playing that in
Kentucky, it's not going to work.
In Kentucky, it's really not going to work. So localizing and using the AI tools that we have to localize those voices, for example, it again focuses all the way back to the customer experience. What is going to cause the customer to say, "Oh, that sounds familiar to me"? You always want to walk into a store and feel like you're at home, feel like you're familiar, feel like you belong. So what sort of things can we do with the music and the advertising and getting the balance right? Not having 40 minutes of advertising and 20 minutes of music, to really balance that, where it's more heavy on the music and then it's a mix of advertising and then also in-store promotions where the retailer gets an opportunity to talk directly to their customers and talk about things that are happening in the store and things that matter to their customers.
I'm sure you're aware of this, and probably most of or some of the viewers are, and some of the listeners are. But music to me, in a way, is like, I would say fragrance or aroma. Like when you walk into, I'm just going to pick a hotel, the Four Seasons, they've specifically chosen an aroma and a fragrance for that hotel to make it feel like a certain thing. And music does the same thing inside of a retail space. And I love the fact as well that you brought up the employees, because I wonder sometimes when I walk into a store, I'm like, this is playing on a loop all day. The employees must need counseling.
They're going to lose their mind if it's And that's the way that music has historically been done in stores. It's just on a loop. It's playing the same thing over and over again. And that's why you find store managers that they're going out of their mind and they just turn it off because they can't handle it. And then that doesn't help the customer because the customer hasn't been in there all day. It may be great for the customer, but you can't have it great for the customer and bad for the employees. So we look to find that balance of both, and we get input from the employees of what music they would want there. We're getting net promoter scores from the employees because we want to make sure that they're happy with what's playing as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have a good vibe on what the customers, because if customers walk in and just like make that face like, I can't stay in here because the music is terrible, the employees are definitely going to know that.
And it was funny how it works sometimes. So 7-Eleven in the US is one of our big clients, and I was in Las Vegas for Shop Talk in March. And I was staying at a hotel across the street from a 7-Eleven. So I said, oh, great, I'll walk in. And the way the music was playing and with the advertising, I just felt my mood completely changed when I walked in there. Of course, it was really hot. It was Las Vegas. But you walk in and all of a sudden, it's incredible how fast your mood can change for the positive with good music at the right levels. And then when the advertising happens, you're more open to it.
Yeah, because it feels like it's part of the same thing and your mood is already better. I can't remember where it was, but recently I was it must have been a restaurant, and I felt like they were playing my playlist. Like they must have known who I was, but I wasn't the only guy there, but I'm like, this music is all from when I was in high school. Like how do they know that? And it literally changed the way I felt about this.
It's amazing when that happens. I've had that happen one other time. I was at, of all places, a miniature golf place in Rotorua in New Zealand.
Right.
And they had gotten so much input on the music. They had their own Spotify channel. And people would always ask, like, what is this music? People were so excited by their music that they posted that Spotify channel and created it so that people could listen to the music because they understood what their customers were, what type of music they liked, and then they made it available.
So I want to ask you one more thing and then I'll let you go. It seems to me that more and more retailers, particularly those that have like large number of outlets, are going to build their own media network. So they'll use your technology, but they want it to be just for them, right? So when you walk into, let's just use your example, a 7-Eleven, it's going to be different than walking into like a store for Levi Strauss.
Absolutely. Every store has their own, every retail chain has their own vibe. Every retail store has their own demand profiles of what products sell at different times. Even if an energy drink is sold at a Target, is sold at a 7-Eleven, is sold at a grocery store, their demand profiles are going to be different. The music is going to be different. Everything is going to be different. The measurement, the performance is going to be different. So we always focus, it's an important with technology. It's still the retailer's media program. It's how do we enable that component and the in-store components to be most impactful, to have the best performance and allow their brand suppliers to deliver on their objectives.
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. So thank you so much for doing that. Okay, Sean, I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I was so excited to talk to you because as you can see, like audio obviously is very important to us as a business because this sounds way different than this. And even that little change can make a big difference. So the sound that like sort of permeates inside of a store, whatever that sound is, whether it's an ad or music or just even some background noise, is going to make a big difference. And I wanted to talk to somebody who was actually involved in this on a day-to-day basis. So thank you again for coming and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I'm happy to talk anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Okay. That was awesome. Thank you again to Sean for coming and doing that today. That is it for AGTP Daily. Thank you to everybody who joined us live and for everybody who's going to watch this after we post it on our YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, as I said. Follow us on all of our socials. Follow us on X. Follow me on X personally. Follow the business on X. Follow us on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And as always, let us know in the comments if there's anything you would like us to discuss on our upcoming shows, or participate with us live during the show and let us know if there's anything there that you want to know that maybe we haven't asked. As always, thank you again to Martin Runford. My name is Michael Waits. Bye for now.